kind of reading around. It's one of those days, and who should be favored to win the SEC coming up in 2022? I don't have make any. I don't hide the fact that I read a lot of outlets, and Bill Connolly is one of the best people to read in the off season. He works at ESPN, and he's got his SP plus. I almost called S&P stock market term there, but he's got Georgia as the number two nationally in front of Alabama, and this is the projections for 2022, which makes you think, well, what does that mean for the league? What does that mean for Georgia and Alabama, and what would be, oh man, let's see, 17, 18, let's see, 17, 18, 20, 21, 22. That'd be 5 games in a 6-year period between the two. No, it would be 5 games in 5 years. Excuse me, because they played twice this past year. One of which was on the cover of this book. Does that mean? Do you buy that Georgia's the favorite for the conference? I'm not sure. I do. I do really still think it should be Alabama, or I will vote Alabama number one coming into this season. Make sure you're picking up DAWGSTRUCTION. The link is right down below. 80-page. Uh, just really nice look at the season and so forth. There's a Tennessee game. Bill's got the Vols in the top 10. There's a few of these that I think are not realistic. I know Ryan talked about this earlier in the week, or I guess late last week. For record, it's the S&P projections. Now again, these are projections. S&P, excuse me, SP. Keep doing it. SP plus projections. These are things that take into account returning offensive production, defensive production, special teams production, and just general production, generally speaking. Excuse me. And I don't know that I would have Tennessee in my top 10 just coming into any season. Um, Clemson at 5 is a little high for me as well. Mississippi State at 12 is a little bit. These are the ones that sort of jump out to me. Um, the top four, he has Ohio State, then Georgia, Alabama, and Michigan. I would not have Georgia as the number two personally, and I'm not pulling a Jeff Dantzler here. I really, I don't. I think that's a little high. I think Alabama is the favorite coming into this 2022 season for the league. I'm not sure they're as lopsided a favorite as you know maybe we would be led to believe. I mean, Georgia has lost a lot. Alabama lost a lot as well. Both these teams, every single season, are going to lose a lot of players because they recruit so well, and you're going to see guys leave, but and get drafted. But Alabama is returning the Heisman Trophy winner. They are returning a defense that got better as the season went on. And no matter what Nick said, and I think what Nick said was true, Nick Saban, about the loss in the championship game and not having particular players out there, that's what recruiting's for. That's what development's for. And we saw players at Georgia like William Poole was out there. William Poole hardly played in meaningful snaps in 2021. But there he was in the national championship game, making plays left and right. I often reference this book to to remember what happened. Yeah, there's William Poole right there with the block. There's Kirby freaking out. William Poole was in on the last play of the game, last meaningful play of the game. I'm sure he was on the last sack too. It really is a good. I'm not just saying this now to encourage y'all to buy it down below. It is a good reference point for me to remember certain things because you can't always run to YouTube or wherever you watch games to reference things. But those guys being ready was maybe what separated Georgia from Alabama in that championship game. The guy who started at quarterback for Georgia at the beginning of the season was not in there. He was not in there because of injury. Okay, that happens. George Pickens, you have the whole season basically without George until the end. Georgia survived that. Same thing with, a slew of players. Roseme, Jack Saint got hurt during the season. Obviously, Eric Gilbert didn't play at all. George Pickens, you know, Blaylock. These are all players who didn't play specifically a receiver, that were problematic for Georgia to get to the national championship game. I'm getting off the subject. With all of that said, I like what Georgia's returning. I just don't think you can really legitimately say they are the favorite to win the league when Alabama was so young and is returning a lot of what they went to Indianapolis with. My caveat and my nuance here is that I'm not sure that Alabama's like a shoe-in to win the league. Both Georgia and Bama's got a tougher path to get to Atlanta, but look, and I don't mean this bad, but I'll believe Texas A&M winning the league or winning that side of the league when I see it. They beating Alabama is great until unless and people aren't doing it unless you got to do it in a terminal game. You got to do it in a game that's not in October where you got your ass whipped by Arkansas earlier in the year. I mean, you got to do it when it matters, and not when you have 3 conference losses or whatever it is. So you got to do it when it really matters, and we'll see with Texas A&M. LSU I think is a little too early for me personally for that to happen. I mean, obviously with Florida, you're asking a lot for Florida to really be competitive this coming season. I think it could be a long stretch back to get where they got to go. Quarterback is a real issue there. But, in the top 10, you got Ohio State, Georgia, Alabama, Michigan, Clemson. First of all, I would not have Georgia in front of Alabama. I would not have Clemson in my top 5. But then you got to put somebody else in there. I mean, like, would you really put Oklahoma in your top 5? There are several of these schools that have new coaches that are in the top 10. I mean, Oklahoma, Notre Dame. There's been major coaching upheaval at Clemson. Michigan, their coach is just wandering around the NFL looking for a job. There's not a lot of stability at some of these places. So the top 10, it seems to me that, and I've talked about this a lot, and I'm going to continue to talk about it. The top 3 programs, teams in the country right now, in no particular order: Bama, Georgia, Ohio State. Everybody after that's got to prove they can do it. That's it. I mean, I'm trying to think. No one else has won a playoff game in these last 2 years, so it's not exactly hard to get on a limb and say that. Those are the only 3 programs who have played for a national championship lately, etc. Now, you never want to be a prisoner of the moment, but Ohio State got their ass whipped pretty good by Alabama this past year. In 2020, Georgia didn't get beat like that. I mean, that game was just a smoke show. Georgia lost in the 3rd quarter. That Ohio State Alabama game was a little bit like the Ohio State Clemson game. Is not so far from being over at the half, as I recall. So, is there space between Alabama, Georgia, and Ohio State? Maybe, but they're in my top 3 at this stage too. But in terms of who should win the league, I mean, there's not a lot in Georgia's way. When you read what several folks say, I'm not so far from this, but if they went 24-0 collectively, I wouldn't be shocked. I might be a little bit surprised because the league is difficult. But Alabama has a much tougher road to Atlanta, and I'm sure we'll hear about that. I mean, Alabama fans seem to get triggered over whatever. They're a sensitive group. I'm not sure I understand the sensitivity. I mean, you're going to lose in this great run that Alabama's had. They've only won a national championship in back-to-back seasons once. I mean, that's something that's hard to accomplish / nearly impossible to do. So, I mean, look, they got beat by Georgia. They got beat by double digits. There were explanations or reasons why, and I think we're going to continue to see these too. The question is, how long will these 2 teams be fighting it out in the SEC? They've only played for the conference championship twice in the last 5 years. That's not a lot. But in that time, they've combined to win, 17, 20, and 20. They won 3 national championships. So, I mean, they're the best. They're the best 2 programs in the league. I think Alabama is going to be favored. I just don't think it's going to be extremely wide margin of favored. Make sure you're picking up DAWGSTRUCTION down below. You can get that picture of William Poole with Keely Ringo taking it back to the house. Order it now. You're going to be in the first shipments. Order it later and you're not. Do it now. Thanks for watching.